There she was, sitting at the back of the boardroom, dressed sharply, eyes lit with ideas, and a heart full of conviction. But once again, her voice faded into the cold silence of indifference. They called the meeting to innovate. They claimed they wanted fresh perspectives. They spoke the words of inclusivity, but when it came time to listen, her ideas were either dismissed or stolen. Her name was Danielle Carter, a brilliant mind with a vision for changing the way communities connected with local products. She wasn't asking for favors. She brought research, she brought numbers, she brought strategy. But they only saw her skin. They only saw a young black woman trying to speak in a space where they thought she didn't belong. Her coworkers, mostly white, mostly male, nodded at each other, echoing ideas she had already said, sometimes word for word. They applauded those echoes. But when Danielle spoke first, silence. Sometimes even smirks. Danielle knew this wasn't new. It happened in school. It happened in college. It happened every time she entered a space that claimed to be open-minded. At first, she tried harder. She polished her pitch. She practiced her tone. She worked late nights, creating presentation decks no one would look at. Still, the results were the same. They took her ideas and placed someone else's name on them. One time, her project lead won an internal award using a campaign strategy Danielle had written herself, verbatim, from a Google Doc she shared in confidence. It wasn't just disrespect. It was theft. It was structural dismissal, and it broke something in her. But instead of letting it destroy her spirit, Danielle decided to shift her power. She didn't want to scream to be heard anymore. She didn't want to keep shrinking herself to make others feel comfortable. So one day, after another meeting where her contributions were erased, she did something bold. She quit, not with fanfare, not with fireworks, just a simple email, 2 lines long, and a quiet fire in her chest that whispered, "I will no longer wait for permission to be powerful." Danielle had been dreaming of a business idea for years, a digital marketplace that exclusively promoted Black-owned local businesses in overlooked neighborhoods. From handmade skincare to cultural crafts, her platform would bring visibility to creators who were just as ignored as she had been in that boardroom. She started small. Her bedroom became her office. Her kitchen table became her strategy desk. Her savings, what little she had, became her seed money. She used skills no one had valued at her job: branding, storytelling, SEO, community outreach. She built the website herself, learned social media algorithms, and started showcasing local Black entrepreneurs on Instagram. At first, she barely got traffic. Friends and family liked a few posts. She sent dozens of cold DMs. Crickets. But Danielle was used to being ignored. That wasn't new. What was new was that this time, she was ignoring them. All the voices that told her she wasn't enough, that she needed validation to lead. She kept going. Then came the breakthrough. A small beauty influencer discovered her page and shared it with her followers. The post went mildly viral. Within a week, Danielle's platform had 10,000 visitors. Orders started flowing in for the creators she featured. Emails from other entrepreneurs poured in. "Can you feature my candles? I make cultural jewelry. Can I be part of your site? I've never felt seen before. Thank you." Danielle was stunned, not by the growth, but by the realization that all this time, there had been hunger for what she had to offer. It wasn't that her ideas were bad. It wasn't that she wasn't ready. It was that the wrong people were doing the listening. She started hiring. First, a part-time assistant. Then, a developer to optimize the platform. Then a small marketing team made up of women like her, underestimated, overlooked, and ready to change the game. The same industry that once dismissed her began to notice. Articles were written about her platform. She was invited to panels, podcasts, and conferences. Ironically, some of the same executives who had once ignored her ideas sent her LinkedIn messages asking if she'd consider consulting for their company. Danielle never responded. She didn't need to. Her success had already spoken louder than any reply ever could. But she wasn't building just for revenge. This wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving to herself, and to every girl watching her, that their voice is powerful, even when it's unheard. Danielle's journey had just begun. As Danielle's platform continued to grow, she found herself at a crossroads. The steady stream of orders, collaborations, and recognition was validating, but it came with its own challenges. She was no longer just a passionate entrepreneur working from her bedroom. She was the head of a growing movement. Her mission had always been clear: to elevate Black entrepreneurs and create a space where their work would not be overlooked or undervalued. Yet, now she was tasked with building a business that could sustain this impact. She had to scale her vision without compromising the integrity of the community she had created. But with growth came pressure, and with pressure came moments of doubt. There were days when the sheer weight of managing a business would threaten to overwhelm her. Danielle often found herself questioning if she was doing enough. Was she doing too much? Could she maintain this momentum? Or was she simply riding a wave that would eventually crash? In the early days of building her platform, Danielle was often working late into the night, designing logos, curating product listings, reaching out to influencers, negotiating with brands. Each step felt like a small battle against the world that had once ignored her. But now, with a growing team and a more complex operation, Danielle had to balance the joy of success with the responsibility of leadership. One of the hardest decisions she faced was trusting others with her vision. She had spent so long fighting for her ideas, for her voice, that the thought of delegating felt almost impossible. Could she trust someone else to maintain the same level of commitment, passion, and understanding of her mission? The answer, she realized, was yes. But it took time. She hired a small team, carefully selecting individuals who shared her passion for the cause. Many of them were women of color, people who understood the importance of amplifying voices that had been silenced for too long. It was important for Danielle that her team wasn't just qualified, but connected to the mission on a deep, personal level. Slowly but surely, Danielle learned the art of leadership, balancing empathy with decisiveness, vision with execution. She began delegating tasks she never thought she could let go of. The burden of perfection that had once kept her up at night started to lift. The work didn't become any less challenging, but it became more manageable. One day, as Danielle walked through the office, her team of designers, marketers, and customer service reps busy at their desks, she realized how far she had come. What had once started as a small, passionate dream in her bedroom was now a full-fledged business, with employees, clients, and a mission that was growing beyond her wildest expectations. The growth wasn't just in numbers, either. It was in the voices of the entrepreneurs she helped. Danielle made it a point to stay connected with the people who had started with her, the small business owners, the creators whose work was featured on her platform. She would text them, call them, or check in via social media, always reminding them that their success was hers too. One of the most rewarding moments for Danielle came when a local artist, whom she had featured early on, reached out to thank her. This artist, a young woman who made intricate jewelry inspired by African heritage, had sold only a few pieces before Danielle's platform helped her gain a following. Now, her jewelry was being worn by influencers, featured in magazines, and sold in stores across the country. That's what it's all about, Danielle thought. It's not just about my business, it's about lifting others up. Danielle's business wasn't just thriving financially. It was making a real difference in the lives of the people she had always fought for. It was creating a ripple effect, one where the stories of these entrepreneurs were now being heard and appreciated. And as their businesses grew, so did Danielle's. But success was never Danielle's end goal. She wanted to build something that would outlast her, a legacy that would continue long after she had moved on. She wanted to create a platform that would inspire the next generation of Black women, men, and non-binary individuals to step into their power and create their own opportunities. To achieve that, Danielle started mentoring young entrepreneurs. She hosted webinars and workshops, sharing her story and offering practical advice on starting a business, overcoming obstacles, and staying true to one's values. She knew how hard it was to navigate a world that often didn't want you to succeed. And now, she wanted to make sure no one ever had to do it alone. As she sat in her office one evening, looking over a new marketing campaign designed to spotlight Black-owned businesses during Black History Month, Danielle couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The woman who had once been dismissed in that cold, corporate boardroom was now the CEO of a thriving business. A woman who had been told that her ideas didn't matter had created a platform that showcased the power of those very ideas. The path had not been easy. It had been paved with struggles, moments of self-doubt, and setbacks that threatened to take her off course. But in each of those moments, Danielle found a lesson, an opportunity to rise higher, to push harder, and to prove to the world that the voices they had tried to ignore were not only valid, they were powerful. Danielle's business was no longer just a project. It was a movement of strength, resilience, and empowerment. A movement that was just getting started. Her story was far from over. She was determined to continue creating, to continue building, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been overlooked. For every woman, every person of color, every voice that had been silenced. Danielle Carter was proving that you don't have to ask for permission to change the world. You just have to do it. As Danielle's business continued to grow, her vision expanded beyond the borders of her city, beyond the United States, and into the global marketplace. She had always believed that the power of Black entrepreneurs deserved a global stage, and now she was creating that stage. What started as a small platform to uplift local talent had now evolved into a movement with international reach. Danielle knew that in order to scale her business globally, she would need to expand her brand and connect with people outside of her immediate circles. But she didn't want to compromise the core values of her platform, values that had helped so many entrepreneurs find success. She wanted to ensure that no matter where her platform went, it would always be a place that felt like home for marginalized voices. The decision to go global wasn't made overnight. It required careful planning, strategizing, and networking on a scale Danielle had never encountered before. She had to navigate the complexities of international business, from shipping logistics to understanding the cultural nuances of different markets. But through it all, she remained steadfast in her belief that the need for equitable representation in business was universal. Danielle reached out to other Black entrepreneurs around the world, people from countries she had never visited, but whose stories she had come to admire. She connected with them through social media, through online business forums, and even by traveling to attend international business conferences. Slowly but surely, she built a global network of like-minded individuals who shared her passion for creating opportunities for underrepresented entrepreneurs. One of the most pivotal moments in her global expansion came when Danielle was invited to speak at an international conference on entrepreneurship in Johannesburg, South Africa. It was an opportunity that took her out of her comfort zone, but one that she knew she couldn't pass up. South Africa, with its rich history of overcoming adversity, felt like the perfect place to make her global debut. Standing before an audience of thousands of entrepreneurs, Danielle shared her story. How she had been dismissed in a boardroom, how she had been told her ideas didn't matter, and how she had gone on to create a business that was changing the landscape of entrepreneurship. The crowd listened in rapt attention as Danielle spoke not just of business, but of resilience, perseverance, and the power of community. Her speech was a turning point, not just for her business, but for the future of Black entrepreneurship on a global scale. The response was overwhelming. Attendees from all over the world reached out to her afterward, expressing their gratitude for her words and asking how they could get involved in her platform. Danielle realized that there was a hunger for what she was offering, an authentic space for people of color to thrive without fear of being overlooked or underestimated. It wasn't long after that Danielle began seeing more international entrepreneurs applying to be featured on her platform. She started receiving messages from people in countries like Nigeria, Brazil, the UK, and the Caribbean, all eager to showcase their businesses, share their stories, and be part of the community she had built. But with global success came new challenges. Danielle had to figure out how to balance her role as a global leader with her personal life. The demands of running a business that spanned continents meant more travel, more speaking engagements, more decisions to make. There were times when Danielle felt stretched thin, when she wished she could be in two places at once. and when she wondered if the growth of her business had taken a toll on her mental and emotional health. One of the hardest lessons Danielle learned was the importance of self-care. She had always put others first, her team, her clients, her community, but she soon realized that in order to continue leading, she needed to take care of herself too. It was a lesson that didn't come easily, but it was one that she would carry with her for the rest of her career. To help manage the growing demands, Danielle brought on a team of international managers who were as passionate about her vision as she was. They helped handle the day-to-day operations of the global side of the business, while Danielle focused on maintaining her role as the visionary leader. She also made it a point to establish clear boundaries between work and personal life, something that had been difficult for her in the past. She began scheduling time for rest, for reflection, and for spending time with the people who mattered most. As her business reached new heights, Danielle also made it a priority to give back to the communities that had supported her along the way. She established a scholarship fund for aspiring Black entrepreneurs, offering grants to those who wanted to start their own businesses but lacked the financial resources. It was a way for her to invest in the next generation of leaders, ensuring that the cycle of empowerment would continue long after she was gone. The impact of her business was undeniable. Danielle's platform had not only created opportunities for entrepreneurs to showcase their products and ideas, but it had also built a community where Black business owners could support one another. It had become a place where collaboration was valued over competition, where mentorship was available, and where the success of one was celebrated as the success of all. As her influence continued to grow, Danielle also used her platform to advocate for systemic change. She spoke out about the importance of diversity and inclusion in business, about the need for fair representation in the media, and about the barriers that still existed for people of color in the entrepreneurial world. Danielle wasn't just building a business. She was building a movement that was challenging the status quo and pushing for a more equitable future. One of her proudest moments came when her platform was recognized by major global organizations as a leader in diversity and inclusion. It was a moment that validated all the hard work, the late nights, and the sacrifices Danielle had made. She had done more than just launch a business. She had launched a revolution, one that was changing the face of entrepreneurship forever. As Danielle looked back on her journey, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride and gratitude. The woman who had once been told her ideas didn't matter was now the founder of a global brand that was changing the world. She had proven that Black women could build businesses that not only survived but thrived, and that their voices could no longer be ignored. Her work wasn't done yet. There was still so much more to accomplish, so many more entrepreneurs to lift up. But Danielle knew that with her team, her community, and her unwavering belief in the power of Black entrepreneurship, the sky was the limit. And so, as she looked out over the horizon, Danielle Carter knew that her story was just beginning. Danielle's journey was no longer just about business. It was about legacy. As her platform flourished, she found herself at the helm of something much larger than she had ever imagined. A movement that was shaping the future of entrepreneurship, leadership, and representation for Black women and other marginalized communities. What she had built was not only a successful business, but a powerful symbol of resilience, empowerment, and the strength that comes from embracing one's true self. Her story, from the boardroom that dismissed her ideas to the global stage where her business had earned respect, had inspired countless people. Danielle became a beacon of hope for aspiring entrepreneurs, particularly Black women, who often felt overlooked in traditional business spaces. But as her influence grew, so did her sense of responsibility. Danielle knew that the most important part of her journey wasn't just the success she had achieved. It was how she could ensure that success would have a lasting impact. The first step in solidifying her legacy was creating programs that would support the next generation of entrepreneurs. She understood the challenges that newcomers would face, having navigated so many obstacles herself, and she wanted to make sure others didn't have to go through the same struggles. This led to the launch of a mentorship program that paired successful entrepreneurs with emerging talent, fostering a community of guidance, collaboration, and encouragement. The program was an immediate success. Young Black entrepreneurs, many of whom had never had access to professional mentors, now had someone to turn to for advice, support, and guidance. The mentors, many of whom were accomplished Black business leaders in their own right, offered not only professional advice, but personal insight into the emotional and mental fortitude required to succeed in an often unforgiving business world. Danielle's mentorship initiative helped to cultivate a new wave of entrepreneurs who were empowered to create their own businesses, write their own narratives, and build their own legacies. These young business owners began to pay it forward, supporting others in the way they had been supported, creating a ripple effect that would continue for generations to come. However, Danielle's impact was not just limited to mentorship. She also sought to challenge the very systems that had perpetuated inequality in the first place. Through strategic partnerships with advocacy organizations, she worked tirelessly to push for policy changes that would make it easier for minority entrepreneurs to gain access to the resources they needed to succeed. This included lobbying for more inclusive access to funding, grants, and business development programs. Danielle understood that systemic change was necessary to create lasting equality, and she became a powerful voice in pushing for these changes within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. As her influence grew, she was also invited to sit on various advisory boards and committees aimed at shaping the future of business and entrepreneurship. Danielle became a sought-after speaker at global conferences, where she spoke about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in business practices. Her words, once dismissed by others, were now celebrated as an essential part of the conversation on the future of entrepreneurship. Despite the recognition and accolades, Danielle remained humble. She never lost sight of the purpose that had driven her from the beginning, to create opportunities for others. Whether she was sitting in a boardroom with Fortune 500 executives or speaking to a group of young entrepreneurs just starting out, Danielle remained grounded in her mission. She often spoke about how her own success was not the result of individual achievement, but of the collective strength of the community that had supported her. For Danielle, success wasn't just about building a profitable business. It was about building a community where everyone had the opportunity to thrive. One of the most powerful ways Danielle gave back to her community was through her philanthropic efforts. She established a nonprofit arm of her business, focused on providing scholarships, grants, and educational resources to underserved communities. Through this initiative, Danielle was able to fund scholarships for students pursuing degrees in business, technology, and entrepreneurship, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds. She believed that education was the key to breaking the cycle of poverty and opening doors to opportunities that would otherwise be out of reach. In addition to funding scholarships, Danielle's nonprofit also focused on providing practical resources for aspiring entrepreneurs, such as free business development workshops, networking events, and startup incubators. These programs were designed to equip entrepreneurs with the skills, tools, and connections they needed to succeed in a competitive business world. Danielle's nonprofit became a vital lifeline for many aspiring entrepreneurs, offering them not only financial support, but also the confidence to take bold steps toward building their businesses. As the years went by, Danielle's platform continued to thrive, and her legacy began to take shape in ways she had never imagined. Her story, once a tale of rejection and perseverance, had now become a blueprint for success for countless entrepreneurs. She had created a space where Black entrepreneurs could flourish, and more importantly, where they could see themselves reflected in positions of power and influence. Danielle's success was no longer just her own. It was shared by everyone who had been inspired by her journey. Her legacy wasn't just about business, either. Danielle became a role model for women, particularly women of color, who had been told that their ideas didn't matter. She became a symbol of strength, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. In her, people saw someone who had defied the odds and created something that would last long beyond her time. One of the most moving moments in her journey came when Danielle was invited to speak at a special event celebrating Black History Month. It was an event that featured influential Black leaders from various industries, all of whom had made significant contributions to their respective fields. As Danielle took the stage, she was overcome with emotion. Standing there, in front of a room full of people who understood the weight of her story, she realized how far she had come and how much farther she still had to go. Danielle's story was no longer just a personal success. It had become a story of collective triumph. It was a story of Black women rising to claim their space in a world that had long ignored them, of communities coming together to uplift one another, and of entrepreneurs breaking down barriers to create opportunities for the next generation. It was a story that would continue to be told for years to come, inspiring countless others to take the leap and build their own legacies. And so, as Danielle looked ahead to the future, she knew that the most important part of her journey had just begun. Her work was far from over. There were still voices to amplify, stories to tell, and legacies to build. But with every step she took, Danielle Carter knew that she was leaving behind a legacy of empowerment, inspiration, and unwavering belief in the power of Black entrepreneurship. Her story wasn't just about one woman's success. It was about the collective success of a movement that would continue to shape the future for generations to come. Danielle's journey, while undeniably remarkable, was far from over. Her story, though one a tremendous achievement, was always rooted in a deeper mission. The mission to uplift and empower others, to ensure that her impact was not just felt in her own time, but would echo through the generations that followed. She had built a thriving business, a legacy of resilience, and a community of empowered entrepreneurs, but she knew that the true measure of her success would be found in the lives she touched, the doors she opened, and the lasting change she fostered in the world. As Danielle's influence continued to grow, she began to see her role evolve from being just a businesswoman to becoming a global advocate for systemic change. While her business remained the cornerstone of her success, she understood that to achieve lasting change, she needed to continue pushing boundaries and questioning the status quo. Through her platform, Danielle became an advocate for diversity in leadership roles and a fierce proponent of creating spaces where marginalized voices could thrive. Her work didn't stop with her own business or the mentorship programs she had pioneered. Danielle was determined to ensure that Black women, as well as other underrepresented groups, had more access to resources, opportunities, and platforms that would allow them to thrive. She knew that entrepreneurship was not a level playing field, and that even the most talented and driven individuals could be held back by a lack of access to funding, networks, or opportunities. This is where Danielle's advocacy truly shined. She began collaborating with other influential leaders in the business world to address these disparities. Danielle worked with both private and public organizations to create initiatives that would provide capital, mentorship, and networking opportunities to marginalized entrepreneurs. Her efforts focused on making sure that the doors to business success were open to anyone with the drive to succeed, regardless of their background. Through her advocacy, Danielle helped to push forward policies that would ensure underrepresented groups could not only enter but also thrive in the business world. One of her most impactful collaborations was with large financial institutions that had historically failed to lend to minority-owned businesses. Danielle, leveraging her platform and influence, helped create programs that directly addressed this funding gap. She worked tirelessly with these organizations to set up grant programs, low-interest loans, and accelerator programs that specifically targeted Black women and other minority entrepreneurs. The goal was simple: to give these entrepreneurs the financial support and resources they needed to take their businesses to the next level. But Danielle's work wasn't just focused on policy change. She also made a concerted effort to shift the conversation around diversity and inclusion in business. She was a fierce advocate for seeing diversity as an asset, not a liability. Her message was clear: diverse perspectives lead to more innovative, creative, and sustainable businesses. She argued that businesses and institutions that fail to embrace diversity risk losing out on the incredible talent and creativity that marginalized groups bring to the table. Through speaking engagements, panel discussions, and writing, Danielle used her voice to amplify the importance of diversity in the workplace and in entrepreneurship. Her advocacy extended beyond simply pushing for more inclusive hiring practices. She wanted to see more diverse individuals in positions of power, from boardrooms to C-suite offices, and she worked hard to break down the barriers that kept these positions out of reach for Black women and other people of color. In addition to her efforts to create systemic change, Danielle also worked to provide Black entrepreneurs with the tools they needed to succeed. She knew that success in business was not just about having access to capital, it was about having access to the right resources, knowledge, and networks. That's why she expanded her mentorship programs and launched new educational initiatives aimed at equipping entrepreneurs with the skills they needed to navigate the complexities of the business world. These programs included workshops on business development, marketing, finance, and leadership, all tailored to the unique challenges faced by minority entrepreneurs. Danielle's mission was to ensure that these individuals not only had the resources to start their businesses, but also the knowledge and confidence to sustain and grow them. Danielle's reach extended beyond her immediate community, and her work began to have a ripple effect across industries. She became a trusted advisor to various nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and corporate entities, all seeking to understand how to build more inclusive ecosystems for entrepreneurs. As a result of her work, many organizations began to rethink their approach to diversity and inclusion, incorporating her strategies into their own business practices. Her story continued to resonate with audiences everywhere. It wasn't just about a successful entrepreneur overcoming adversity. It was about a movement that encouraged others to believe in themselves and their potential. Danielle had become a role model for countless individuals who, like her, had been told their ideas didn't matter or had been dismissed because of their race or gender. Her success demonstrated that, with perseverance, innovation, and community support, anyone could rise to greatness, no matter the obstacles in their path. But despite all her achievements, Danielle remained humble. She never lost sight of the true reason for her success: the people. She often credited her team, her mentors, and the community that had supported her from the very beginning as the true source of her strength. Danielle's humility was a testament to her character and her commitment to giving back. She didn't see her success as a personal victory, but as a collective one, a victory for everyone who had helped her along the way and everyone who would benefit from the opportunities she had worked to create. As her story continued to inspire, Danielle found herself at the forefront of a new era of entrepreneurship, one where inclusivity, diversity, and equity were no longer just buzzwords but essential principles that would guide the future of business. She knew that her journey was far from over, and that her work would continue long after she had moved on to the next chapter of her life. But for Danielle Carter, the real success lay in knowing that she had made a difference that would be felt for generations to come. Her story, which began with rejection and discrimination, had become one of triumph, not just for her, but for the countless others she had inspired along the way. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that the legacy she had created was one that would continue to transform the business world and beyond for years to come. As Danielle's business grew, so did her vision. What had started as a simple venture to prove her worth had blossomed into a dynamic force, influencing a wave of change that rippled across industries, governments, and global economies. Danielle's entrepreneurial journey was not just about building her own business. It was about laying the groundwork for future generations of women of color to rise and thrive in spaces that had historically been closed to them. Through her leadership and vision, Danielle cultivated a culture of collaboration and empowerment. She wasn't content with merely being a successful business owner. She wanted to change the fabric of entrepreneurship itself. To her, entrepreneurship wasn't just about profits or fame. It was a platform for transformation. And that transformation wasn't just personal. It was collective. She knew that the true measure of her impact would be seen in the success of others who followed her path. Danielle's work on building a sustainable business ecosystem for underrepresented entrepreneurs continued to expand. In addition to her mentorship programs and advocacy for policy changes, she worked to create an environment where innovation could flourish for everyone, regardless of their background. She established a network of entrepreneurial support centers, which offered resources ranging from business planning and legal advice to marketing strategies and investor connections. These centers were designed to provide aspiring business owners with the critical support they needed to turn their ideas into profitable and sustainable businesses. But Danielle's impact didn't stop there. Realizing that many underrepresented entrepreneurs face challenges beyond just business development, she expanded her work to address social issues that directly affected their success. Issues like access to healthcare, education, affordable housing, and even basic financial literacy were at the forefront of her advocacy efforts. She understood that entrepreneurship wasn't just about launching a business. It was about creating a foundation of equality and opportunity where everyone had the same shot at success. One of Danielle's most impactful initiatives was her Startup for All program. This initiative was designed to help aspiring entrepreneurs who didn't have access to the capital, resources, or networks traditionally associated with success in business. Startup for All focused on providing seed funding, mentorship, and business education to people who had great ideas but were systematically excluded from the opportunities that could help them bring those ideas to life. The program, which partnered with a variety of investors, philanthropists, and corporations, quickly became a lifeline for thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs. Danielle's personal involvement in the program helped it grow exponentially, as her name carried weight, and her success was a testament to the program's potential. The initiative not only provided financial support, but also helped individuals navigate the often overwhelming world of business, offering everything from pitch preparation to customer acquisition strategies. But for Danielle, the most rewarding part of this initiative was seeing the success stories unfold. She witnessed countless individuals, many of them Black women and other marginalized entrepreneurs, turn their ideas into successful businesses. These businesses were not just financial triumphs. They were stories of overcoming adversity, of breaking barriers, and of forging paths where none had existed before. As each entrepreneur succeeded, Danielle knew that her mission had been fulfilled in part. What truly set Danielle apart, however, was her ability to shift the culture of entrepreneurship itself. She knew that one of the biggest challenges facing minority entrepreneurs was the lack of access to networks, those invisible forces that can make or break a business. Without these networks, it was nearly impossible to connect with the right mentors, investors, or business partners who could help you scale your business. Danielle's efforts to create these networks were not just about financial gain. They were about fostering connections that transcended business deals and were built on mutual respect and shared growth. Through her extensive network, Danielle facilitated partnerships and collaborations that helped Black women entrepreneurs and other marginalized groups break through barriers in ways they had never been able to before. This sense of community, of belonging, was something that Danielle instilled in every aspect of her work. It was never just about making a sale or landing a deal. It was about creating a culture of support, encouragement, and collaboration. Danielle also took her message to larger platforms, using her growing influence to speak at international conferences and global summits. There, she shared her story and advocated for systemic change in the world of business. Danielle's presence on the global stage allowed her to advocate for policies that supported inclusive entrepreneurship on a much larger scale. Her voice was now amplified, and as she shared her journey, she inspired countless others to follow suit. But despite her massive success, Danielle remained grounded. She never lost sight of the struggles that had brought her to this point. She knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but she was committed to ensuring that those who came after her would have a far easier path. Danielle often credited her success to the support of the people around her, from her family and friends to the mentors who had believed in her when the world didn't. Her legacy wasn't just built on what she accomplished, it was built on how she made others feel along the way. She made people believe in themselves, and she showed them that their dreams were worth pursuing. And through that belief, she created a movement of empowered, inspired individuals who were now standing on the shoulders of the woman who had dared to create a business that defied the odds. As Danielle looked toward the future, she realized that her work was far from done. She had changed the face of entrepreneurship for Black women and other marginalized groups. But she knew that true transformation was a continuous process. She was committed to continuing the fight for equal opportunities, better resources, and more inclusive policies that would ensure that every entrepreneur had the tools they needed to succeed. Her impact was undeniable, but Danielle's heart still burned with the desire to do more, to create a world where every person, regardless of their race, gender, or background, could dream big, take risks, and build something of their own. Through her continued efforts, she was building a legacy that would. Her impact was undeniable, but Danielle's heart still burned with the desire to do more, to create a world where every person, regardless of their race, gender, or background, could dream big, take risks, and build something of their own. Through her continued efforts, she was building a legacy that would extend far beyond the business world, a legacy that would change the lives of countless individuals for generations to come. As Danielle looked back on the incredible journey she had embarked upon, she found herself at a crossroads. The business she had built, the lives she had touched, and the movement she had sparked were all part of a larger vision, a vision that extended beyond her own personal success. Now, after achieving so much, Danielle felt it was time to take the next step, to pass the torch to the next generation of entrepreneurs. Danielle knew that the future of entrepreneurship wasn't just about continuing her legacy. It was about creating space for others to rise, innovate, and lead in ways that would make the world a better place. The torch she was passing wasn't just one of financial success or business acumen. It was one of empowerment, resilience, and a deep understanding that true success was about lifting others along the way. In preparation for this next phase, Danielle began to focus on mentorship in a way she never had before. While she had always believed in the power of mentorship, she now saw it as the key to building a sustainable, inclusive future for entrepreneurship. The next generation of entrepreneurs needed more than just financial backing. They needed guidance, support, and the courage to keep going when the world told them no. Danielle's mentorship programs became more structured, more intentional. She focused not just on business strategy and development, but on nurturing the mindset of future leaders. She wanted them to understand that the journey of entrepreneurship would always have its ups and downs, but that resilience, vision, and a sense of community could make all the difference. She emphasized the importance of understanding one's own worth, of refusing to be defined by others' expectations, and of staying true to one's mission even when the path ahead seemed unclear. One of the key aspects of Danielle's mentorship was teaching young entrepreneurs how to navigate systemic barriers that often held them back. She shared her own experiences of facing discrimination and being dismissed simply because of her identity, reminding them that these challenges were not a reflection of their abilities, but rather a reflection of a flawed system that had yet to catch up with the diverse, global landscape of talent and innovation. She taught her mentor how to face rejection with grace, how to bounce back from setbacks, and how to use adversity as fuel for growth. In passing the torch, Danielle also made a conscious decision to invest in Black women entrepreneurs and other underrepresented groups on a deeper level. She understood that real change happened when access to capital, mentorship, and networks was made available to those who had historically been excluded. To further this mission, Danielle created an endowment fund designed specifically to support young Black women who wanted to start their own businesses. This fund would not only provide the necessary resources for early-stage companies, but also empower the recipients to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams without the constant weight of financial strain. But passing the torch didn't mean stepping back completely. Danielle continued to play an active role in the world of business and entrepreneurship, but she shifted her focus to long-term strategies for change. She joined advisory boards, contributed to policy discussions, and continued her advocacy work to ensure that businesses and organizations were creating fair and inclusive environments for all entrepreneurs. Through her foundation and continued advocacy, Danielle was able to facilitate even larger systemic changes. She worked with lawmakers and corporations to ensure that new policies and initiatives were designed to actively support women of color and other marginalized groups in their entrepreneurial pursuits. She was not just changing the narrative of what it meant to be a successful entrepreneur, she was changing the systems that had historically held so many people back. Danielle's personal impact was mirrored in the success of those who followed in her footsteps. As she passed the torch, a new generation of leaders, many of them women of color, took the reins. They were bold, fearless, and equipped with the lessons that Danielle had imparted to them. They carried her vision forward, using their own unique perspectives and ideas to reshape industries, create new businesses, and elevate their communities. The stories of these young entrepreneurs were a testament to Danielle's legacy. They spoke of the moments when they had faced rejection and failure, but found strength in the lessons they had learned from her. They talked about the doors that had opened for them because of Danielle's work to level the playing field. And most importantly, they spoke of the unbreakable confidence they felt in their ability to succeed, not just as business owners, but as agents of change. Danielle often reflected on how far she had come and how much had changed over the course of her career. When she had first started, the world of entrepreneurship was an exclusive club, one that rarely extended an invitation to women like her. But now, as she passed the torch to the next generation, she knew that the world was different. It was better, and the path was no longer blocked by invisible barriers. There were no limits to what was possible for those who dared to dream. But even with all her accomplishments, Danielle remained humble. She understood that the work was far from over. There were still obstacles to overcome, still challenges to face, and still voices that needed to be heard. But as she looked at the next generation of entrepreneurs, strong, confident, and ready to make their mark, she knew that the future of entrepreneurship was in good hands. The torch had been passed, and the fire of innovation, resilience, and empowerment burned brighter than ever before. And with that, Danielle could finally rest knowing that her work had made a difference, an eternal difference, creating a ripple effect of positive change that would continue for generations.